Welcome to the HIV podcast. Each week we focus on a person, historical event or pop culture moment linked to HIV and explore the story of what actually happened. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jess, and between us we've been working in the field of HIV for 40 years. Our aim is to get as many people as possible HIV educated.
Welcome to the HIV podcast.
A beautiful welcome, Sarah. It's been far too long since I've heard your dulcet tone saying that. Very nice. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Have you recovered from the excitement of the International AIDS Conference?
Yes, it's good, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And obviously you weren't here last week, so I recorded with Zoe and Chantel, who, thank you very much, both of them, for stepping in while you were off on, I know you're going to love this, hollybobs.
No, I absolutely was not on hollybobs.
With the famalam.
No. No.
We hate it so much that I feel like it's now just becoming part of I have vocabulary that I can't even say.
Let's not say that again.
You mean
my feelings. You know my feelings on it. If you start using those words, then that's it. That's the end of it.
Do you know what I also hate? Picky bits.
Oh no! See, I quite like it when people say they're having a picky tea.
No, that was my next one. Picky tea. It
Love
makes me feel sick. Do you want picky bits? No. So for anyone that doesn't know what picky bits are, because you might not be in the UK, and so here basically, as soon as the sun comes out, your mum would be like, should we just have picky bits for tea? And what that means is just a selection of random things like cocktail sausages and crisps and whatever's basically in the fridge that involves no cooking. But it's almost, I suppose, a little bit like a buffet, isn't it? Picky bit.
It is, yeah.
I have picky bits.
Picky bits and a carpet picnic. Because you can never picnic outside in the UK.
I don't mind the phrase carpet picnic. I'd rather that than being like, picky bits or picky tea. But anyway, we digress. But are you having a lovely holiday? You sort of just stopped in, haven't you, to record with me? So what a delightful activity for your holiday, having to come and record.
Oh no, it's fine. No, it's good. It's summer holiday. So I'm in Stressville, Arizona, even though they're teenagers and barely need me.
Oh, but it's that phase surely where they need you, don't need you. Like they don't want to need you, but they need you.
They need you for lifts, which they never tell you about to the last second.
That would be
completely forgetting that you've got a job and many things to do around the home and a calendar that everyone can fill in. It's like a family calendar.
Oh, no. Well, enjoy being a taxi driver on your time off,
Yay, I will do. Excellent.
Well, in my world, we are currently, right at this moment, I'm having to do essential oils with my dogs.
Well, all of them?
Well, just Tony, but Jimbo quite likes it, so he's laying next to him.
No.
Swear to God. Have you ever heard of this? Yeah.
No.
So basically where I live, they have like tons of events throughout the summer. It's like every weekend there's an event, yeah. And unfortunately there's fireworks. And we've just come off the back of having 5 nights straight of fireworks. And Rita and Jimbo don't mind fireworks at all. Rita does whatever Jimbo does. He's not bothered. She's not bothered. But big old Tony, he really was upset with the fireworks, and it's had sort of quite a long-lasting impact on him, and he's been incredibly anxious and stressed out, and I've had to turn all the tones off on my phone because if my WhatsApp goes off, he runs away.
Aww.
So to help calm him down, so I contacted the rescue centre. There's a highly skilled behaviourist that works there, and just said, look, if you've got any advice, what can I do to help him, because he's really not having a good time. And they said essential oils.
No. What, just burning them? Or
No. So I've got frankincense, vetiver or vetiver, I don't know how you say that, and valerian. And all you do is you just get your little bottle and you take the lid off and you just put it next to or near wherever they're laying. So right now he's literally laying next to me down here. And because he was pacing around the house, I've put the frankincense next to him. Jimbo, getting right involved, went and laid next to him, like, give me some of that as well. And honestly, it just chills them out.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, I wonder if you can get them for cats.
Oh, yeah, you must be able to. Have a look. Does she sit still long enough that you could put a bottle of essential oils near her?
Well, she sleeps for like 19 hours a day. Actually, longer than that. 22 hours. Then you've got an hour for her to scoff her face, eating all the food. And then at least a good 20 minutes when she goes absolutely crazy every night. So
sounds like a treat.
Yeah. Yes. So that's when I need the essential oils.
Well,
They call it the Zoomies, don't they?
Yes, but that's joy. So they say
it?
that, I don't know about with cats, but with dogs, the zoomies is a complete expression of joy where they don't know what else to do. They're so overcome with joy. So you'll never see like an unhappy or an ill dog or an in pain dog having the zoomies.
Oh, God. But she's just manic.
Really? What does she
Literally.
do?
She just races up and down the stairs, around the back of the settee, jumps up on the settee, jumps back down, stops, looks at you like, who the hell are you? I've never seen you before in my life.
Oh.
She's in, she's out. It's just like, oh, will you please just calm down?
Oh, and is it always sort of the same time every night?
Yeah, it's either in the evening or first thing in the morning.
Oh.
I don't know, but yeah, she needs essential oils all over her.
Doesn't she? Well, I know quite rightly that some, you need to look into it because some send your dog or cat a bit bonkers. But yeah, have a little look if the old frankincense, some of them don't smell great. The frankincense probably smells the best. The other two I'm not loving, but it's not up to me, is it? It's not
No, it's not for you.
No.
Oh.
It's not for
Well,
my
I'll give it a
smelling
go.
pleasure. Do it. Give it a go. That's my non-HIV related news for the day.
Excellent. Right, are we ready to start?
Yes, ready.
So we are, I love a little mini series. Come on.
And hasn't this one grown and grown, you said?
Oh, yes, that's why I love them. Because you start off doing 1 or 2 episodes, and before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole.
How many
all kinds of stuff.
How many has this got to?
Well, I don't know. I think it might be 7,
What? This literally started off as 2 episodes.
Yeah, but then it got really interesting and good. So we are looking at denial.
Yeah. In terms of HIV, right?
Yeah, not just life. Although some of it probably applies to life. But yeah, in the terms of HIV. And we're really looking at why some people are able to accept their diagnosis and others aren't.
That is a really fascinating.
That's right. The sun just came out as I said that, and I was bathed in light.
It was, yeah, that did look like a slight religious experience, what happened there. Lit up like a little angel. I'm interested. I don't know what I was about to start talking about denial, because literally that's what we're going to do in this episode. So I will wait for you to lead us and then I will join in.
So we are, well, first of all, I think HIV medication is free in the UK, as we know. And I think it can be hard to understand why some people, and it is a very small majority, it's not small, is it? It's a very small minority that don't take their medication. And we have talked about this on the podcast before. And there are lots of reasons why people don't take their medication. Some of them are really, really complex. So things like, wanting to have a treatment break or using it as a cry for help or a way to be noticed or lack of self-worth. You're not believing that you're worthy of living. So why would you take the medication? Sometimes it's a conscious choice to elevate control over the one area where you can have control, especially if life is becoming chaotic. Sometimes it's because of chems use. Sometimes it's decisions based on faith or a belief that God will cure them. But sometimes, and in our service user group, it is more prevalent in women, they don't take the medication because they're in denial. So they can't acknowledge they have HIV, so they just don't take their meds. And out of all the reasons, I actually think that's probably the hardest one to understand.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you say, it's interesting that for our client base, obviously we can't speak for other people and sort of their service users, but for our client base, that it is more often than not women that have that sense of denial around that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So look, we need to understand this more ourselves, because if we can understand it, we're in a better position then to support other people. So we're going to look at the process of dealing with an HIV diagnosis. It follows the same process as dealing with grief. Those steps you go, actually not just grief, any life-changing news. There are steps that you go through to process and deal with that news.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a look at more depth at the denial stage.
Yeah.
So far, so good?
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm just trying not to skip ahead. I always just start going, wanting to talk about things. And you're like, yeah, we're going to get to that. Slow your road.
We will. Okay, so the stages of grief. And grief can be anything. It's not just associated with death, which I think is everyone's first kind of port of call. If you mention the word grief, it could be breakdown of a relationship, breakdown of a friendship, or in this case, your health. So we all know you can live healthily with HIV, but when you receive the initial news, could be the first time that you've had any health issues, or if you've already got health issues, this is just another thing to add to the list. Either way, you might feel that your health is deteriorating or your body is letting you down, or you might not. I know it affects everybody differently.
I think even just the shock of it, because I think your mind, and I know we talk about this all the time about the campaign from the 80s, I think your mind instantly goes, what do I know about HIV? That's what I know. And it takes you back to those, adverts, if you are someone that remembers those. And I think that is an unfortunate thing, because I don't think the first thing that pops to anyone's mind is, okay, cool, you equals you. This is a long-term condition that's completely manageable. And because that's a very rational way of looking at things. And unfortunately, we aren't particularly rational, aren't we, as human beings? So your brain, it's that trauma response, isn't it? Like you're saying, it's that grief, it's the trauma response.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first stage is shock, as you said, which is, that's a really common reaction when you're diagnosed. That feeling, when everything doesn't feel real, or it's a bit hazy, or like it's happening to someone else. I hate that feeling. And you tend to go on to autopilot. And I've heard people say before, I got my diagnosis and I left the doctor's room and, my legs just propelled me along. I don't really remember how I got out of the clinic. Yeah. That's because of shock. And it's a very natural reaction. And then some people, it can be linked to that sense of fight or flight. That can become really strong. So do I fight this or do I run away?
Yeah.
So during this stage, it's not surprising. It's very hard to process information. We've said before that people getting their diagnosis, being given a big handful of leaflets, and it's like, see you at your next appointment. And the leaflets are just surplus to requirements, really. You're not going to be able to process any of that.
Absolutely. And I do think, and I know we've talked about this as well before, but it is important to say that when you get diagnosed, it's not just I've accepted that, that's fine. We will see people 6 months. 3 is very soon to see somebody, even maybe a year, who have then gone, right, I should probably look at this now. I'm now in a place where I can start dealing with this. I think it can take a hugely long time. And I don't want anyone that's listening out there to feel like, okay, you get a diagnosis and what you're supposed to do is just get on with it and be fine and everything's, life just moves on. It doesn't. That's not how it works. Just takes time. Just be patient with yourself.
Absolutely. And after that initial shock stage, it can be over very quickly. You then go into denial. And really, denial is all about being kind of overwhelmed and unable to process the reality of the situation. So you pretend it's not happening. Yeah. And again, it's a really common reaction to just say, can't believe this is happening to me. And because I can't believe it, I'm going to pretend it's happening to someone else. And often it's not even a conscious pretense. It's just a common defense mechanism, almost like your mind's way of protecting you. So your mind's going, oh, that was a really nasty shock that we just had, but it's okay. It didn't really happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the people, and I don't know if we're going to go into this. I'm sorry if I'm doing that thing where I jump ahead. Even the people who, start looking for reasons why HIV isn't real. We've seen that too, where suddenly someone will get their diagnosis and they've gone down a rabbit hole over here. That's all around why they shouldn't take their medication because HIV isn't real and it's this made up thing. And, you're just watching someone like, oh, this is obviously it's not healthy, but yes, it's your brain. It's that, okay, no, we're rationalizing it in this way over here because it doesn't actually exist and everything's going to be okay. And it's like, oh God. It's a lot.
It is, but it's your mind's way of giving you a bit of time, really, before you need to confront your emotions and kind of think, well, how do I actually really feel about this? So your mind is doing the right thing. It's protecting you. It's going, this is heading towards overload. So we're just not going to deal with it, which is fine. And again, an extremely normal response.
The brain is so fascinating, isn't it, though? It's so fascinating. But what I was learning, I mentioned I was doing CBT the other day and about the journaling. What I learned was your brain will just keep throwing things up to the front of your mind if you're not processing them. So it will keep throwing it up like you need to deal with this. And then you'll be like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm going to push it down. And then it'll throw it up again until you literally process it. And I think that's the important thing, isn't it? You can try to push things down and sort of move away from them and think, I just won't think about them. But your brain literally needs to process it and think about it to be able to move forward.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to be stuck in that kind of constant cycle of going, it's not really happening, or it is happening, no, it's not happening. Oh God, that must be exhausting. Goodness me. So it's during this stage, during denial, people might miss follow-up appointments, essentially because they just don't want to acknowledge what's going on. And that can be a bit of a slippery slope if you're getting into that mindset where you're thinking, you know, it's not, either it's not happening to me, or people like me don't get HIV. Hear that one quite a lot. But denial can last days or weeks, and everyone processes information at their own rate, as you've said. And that's fine, because you're trying to make sense of a life-changing diagnosis. So acknowledging those feelings is essential to moving on. Okay, so let's look at what happens next. So after you've moved through denial and you're starting to accept what's happening, well, for a lot of people, anger. And again, very healthy, natural response, as long as it doesn't consume you. So you could be angry about who infected you, if you know, or how you contracted, even angry at yourself. So whether you're blaming yourself or someone else, we all know anger is a really strong, powerful emotion. And if this stage is taking over all of your thoughts, you need to speak to a medical professional.
That's good advice. I think if you're getting stuck in any of these elements, which is something we definitely see, you know, someone will come to us and it's been 5 years where they're stuck in a point where they're still saying, no, I contracted from, I don't know, toxic plasmosis. I know we've talked about this before, like that's not healthy either. You know, even it doesn't matter, even if you don't know how you contracted, does it? But obsessing over that isn't going to be helpful in moving forward. Exactly.
Getting stuck in a certain point and then just not being able to kind of deal with that. Yeah, you need help. And that's fine. You know, these are massive emotions. It's a big change. So why wouldn't you seek out help?
Yeah.
And anger is a I can't say this word. Anger is a transitory?
Yeah.
Why do I write words that I can't actually say? What's that all about?
Because you're obviously flying, aren't you, when you're typing it up? You're like, this is a transitory feeling, and you're with all your big words.
I know, but they ruin it with the delivery. So it should lessen over time, should become less intense. Do you know when it does? That's often the stage, and again, I can't generalize because everybody's different, but so I say it's sometimes the stage where people like to channel that energy into HIV activism, raising awareness, because that can then lead to feelings of empowerment. That's about taking control, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's suddenly you almost go the other way 100 miles an hour, because like you're saying, it's like, right, I'm going to immerse myself in this, and I think it's healthy. For a short time, this is going to become all of me, because I need to learn everything and do everything and be involved, and this is a part of who you are. But like everything else, you sort of move through that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there can also be a stage called bargaining. So, you know, you're not feeling angry anymore, but you're ready to bargain with whoever's going to listen. And you're either making promises to yourself or your loved ones or a higher power to postpone or reverse the diagnosis. Obviously that's not going to happen. And again, it's kind of a form of control, really. And it is a natural response, I would say. So I've heard people say before, you know, if I pray harder to God, he's going to make HIV go away, or I'm going to be a nicer person. And I've always tended to kind of just roll with it because it's not going to change the outcome. But if that is helping that person in the moment, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, to go, oh, okay, come in next week, we'll see how you got on. But often telling them that's not going to help them, it can be counterproductive because they're just disengaged.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. I think there's a real fine line. And it's actually sort of a stance we take with a lot of our people that abuse substances. I'm not going to sit here judging you or telling you shouldn't, because you will just disengage from this service. And I would rather you were coming and having this service and we were gently posing some questions to you. So it's not questioning, but it's saying, okay, but how does that make you feel? Or is that working for you? This is fine. Yeah, that's why I think this is the approach that we take at TVPS is a good one. No one needs to be shouted at and told off. And sometimes people need to work their way through their own shit, basically, don't they, through their own stuff. They need to work their way through their own thoughts and their own feelings. And more often than not, people will get there at the end to be like, oh, perhaps that wasn't serving me.
Yeah, I mean, I have tried before to say to people, you know, if you want to kind of bargain, could you do it around taking your meds every day? So if I take my meds every day, then HIV is not going to be an issue, because that's the best way to bargain with your body. For some people, it's like, no, because that means that I'm saying I've got it. So it doesn't always work, but it's worth a shout.
It must be difficult, especially in this day and age, because, you know, you get diagnosed with something that sort of you can't see and you can't feel. And then also you become undetectable. So it's not detectable in your mind. So there must be that sort of element of you going, it's almost like it doesn't exist. This like a mythical. And so I can understand how people end up going down that slippery slope of, well, it just doesn't exist at all. It's like, no, it definitely does. Let's not stop taking our meds and find out when your health deteriorates. But I can understand why, you know, other illnesses perhaps, you know, give you some sort of side effects where you can feel them and then you go, oh, I feel better now. I'm taking these. But this, it's like, there is nothing. Unless you're late stage diagnosed, obviously.
It's very true, isn't it? And I do think that's a big barrier to acceptance.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel any different.
Yeah.
And yet you're now being asked to take medication every day. But for something that you can't see.
That's so true. It's like your whole world has changed almost in this split second, but you feel absolutely no different to how you felt for the last 6 months to this 6 months for most people. And that's a very odd transition.
It is, but it's also hard, I think, for people who are diagnosed late. So in hospital, they haven't chosen to be diagnosed. Again, they're dealing with the kind of consequences of that late diagnosis and a deterioration in their health, a recovery from pneumonia or whatever. And then on top of that, it's like HIV caused this. And again, people are like, no, I don't think it did. Oh, it's so difficult sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right. We should say not everyone goes through this kind of bargaining stage, and you can bounce backwards and forwards between stages. You can skip stages. You can experience them all in one day, and it can be really tough on your well-being. And that's why some people experience depression as like the kind of next stage of that grief.
Yeah.
I think we all know what depression is: feelings of hopelessness or helplessness. That's guilt, that's shame, that's loneliness, that's bitterness. All kinds of things get wrapped up in that. Mm-hmm. You know, why is this happening to me and not anyone else? There's isolation with HIV, there's stigma, there's discrimination. All of these things can contribute to your mood. And it's not always easy to recognise the signs of depression. But if you don't feel like getting up in the morning, or you're shutting yourself away and isolating yourself from friends and family, those are signs to get help.
There's like the most beautiful analogy of depression that I've actually ever seen, and it's on this adult cartoon called Big Mouth on Netflix. And it's this, you know, girl, she's a teenager, and basically there's this enormous cat. I can't remember what the cat's called, but it's basically a representation of depression. And, you know, this girl, she's not feeling good, and the cat says, look, come lay down. And the cat like lays on top of her, and it's all snuggly and lovely, you know, to start with. Oh, I just want to stay here, I don't want to go out. But then obviously as time goes on, this cat, the pressure, it's so heavy, she can't get up. But this cat that initially you thought was this, oh, okay, cool, we'll just stay in, we'll just withdraw a bit, we'll just do this. She can't get it off in the end. And I was like, oh, perfect representation.
Very true. That's quite powerful, isn't it? Oh, okay. We're at the final stage, acceptance. So this is all about coming to terms with the new way of living. Probably involves more medical appointments than before and taking tablets every day. But you've come to terms with the reality of living with HIV. Doesn't mean you like it or that you're happy with your diagnosis. It's more that you've reached a place of understanding that this is what life is like now, and you're committed to it. And I think it's at this stage that you're most likely to be comfortable talking more openly about your diagnosis as well.
But I think that's really interesting that you've clarified what acceptance means, because to me, actually, I would have said, yeah, almost some of the things you're saying, it doesn't mean you have to be happy with it. I suppose I've always assumed that being accepting of something, means, okay, cool, yeah, I'm happy, everything's great, but you're right. That isn't necessarily what acceptance means. It is just acknowledging that fact that this is, well, that it is a fact, that this is true.
Yeah.
And this is life. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like you come to an agreement with yourself, don't you? I'll take the medication every day and I will go to the medical appointments. It's fine, but I don't have to like it. And again, I think that's really important to allow yourself that space to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because I think the temptation maybe is just to almost act out like it is really fine and go skipping off into the clinic and just pretend that life is great. And life might well be great, but if you're not loving going to your clinic appointments, that's fine. Who likes going to a medical appointment anyway?
And maybe that's the thing. Perhaps it's, I mean, no one loves going to, like you're saying, to medical appointments. So maybe it's acknowledging maybe this isn't just about HIV. This is just because going to medical appointments and having anything that you have to be, thinking about to do with your health just sucks.
It really does, doesn't it?
Mm.
And I think, being sat in the waiting room and then your appointment's delayed or whatever, it's really busy and you could just feel yourself getting really annoyed about it.
Mm.
And I think, and a lot of people are like, well, I'm never going back because it's just such an awful experience. But it is just part of life. And it's a tiny part. One afternoon, one morning where you've just been kind of waiting, get it out the way, treat yourself to something lovely afterwards. That's what I would do.
That is a good shout. And also think about the nurses are lovely that you're going to see. And I know obviously we had Liz Tarrant on a few weeks ago who was fantastic, but she's not a one-off, I promise you. She is not a one-off. Of all the clinics that we've ever worked with and all the nurses and clinicians that work within and consultants that work within these sexual health clinics, they are so kind and lovely. They will make it a nice visit.
Yeah, exactly. But I do get it. I think, there's almost two types of acceptance in day-to-day life when it's not really impacting on, your plans for the week. Yes, you have to take medication every day, but you've got no medical appointment, so it's all good.
Yeah.
And then those weeks where you've got your clinic appointment and you're like, well, this is just outrageous. This is taking up too much of my time. I've heard people say it so many times, just be like, oh, God, I have to do this, and this is having a big impact. And it's like, yeah, it is, but it's just one day. Yeah. Little treat for afterwards. That's what we need.
That is a really good shout. And I mean, and actually let's acknowledge as well, like you're saying, some clinics aren't that easy to get to. And it's a real pain in the arse trying to get to your clinic. So yes, you're probably dreading it because of that as well. Because on top of you just not wanting to go, because who wants to, it's also quite difficult to actually get to your clinic. It might be quite far away.
See, we've talked about this before, haven't we? With people coming to test, for example. If there are any barriers, it doesn't matter how tiny, to you testing. And that could be having to go out of your way.
The tiniest bit, yes, exactly.
Or there's no parking, or you're not seen immediately. And it's like, no, this is... And we've talked about this when we've had medical appointments of our own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the convenience, isn't it? If I'm going to go to an appointment, I want to be treated like a little princess.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to be waiting because, like you're saying, I'm going to get all huffy. I don't want to go anyway. And oh God, yeah, awful.
I know. Might send this recording to my GP. Next time I have an appointment, I really want to be treated like the princess that I am.
Yeah. Let them know in advance, Sarah.
Yeah. It's a surefire way to get barred from your GP. Just a cup of tea in the waiting room, maybe a biscuit.
Yeah.
Some essential oils.
Oh, right. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to pick this up because he's gone now. It's enough. But Jimbo, the one that doesn't need it, he's out.
Oh, well, this is good.
Well, it is, but the one that needs it's buggered off.
Okay, so some top tips. I'm going to say tips again. I thought it sounded a little bit like I said tits. Some top tips.
Some top tits.
And here they are. Right. So be kind to yourself. Take time. Let these emotions run their course. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. It can take days. It can take weeks. You can go through all of it at once, or it could be spaced out, but just let it run its course. Don't fight it. Let's not waste our energy on that. If you're finding you can't shift certain emotions, seek help. We know those emotions can be big and powerful. At some point, and I think we touched on this earlier, during the process, you'll want to know anything and everything about HIV. But be wise in where you source this. Don't Google it. Just get trusted information from your clinical team. So knowledge is power. We know this, but only if it's the right knowledge. Remind yourself that HIV is a manageable condition, and with medication you can lead a long and healthy life. I don't know if reminding yourself of that helps in some of those stages.
Yeah, no.
Like, why don't you just off?
Yeah.
And also, HIV, it's a part of you, but it doesn't define you. But again, I don't think that thinking comes until near the end of the process, when you suddenly go, hold on, no, this doesn't have to control my whole life. I can just, it's up to me how much I kind of let this enter my thoughts.
But I think, sorry, are you at the end of your tips, or are there more?
So it sounded like you said tits too. How sexual, Jessica.
Are you at the end of your tits today?
Well, yes. Fine, we'll do the final one, which is everyone's journey of acceptance is different. So don't compare yourself to anyone. I think that's really common to do. Just don't do it, because everyone's unique and, most likely very lovely. So travel your own journey.
But I also think, and we were having a discussion about this the other day in relation to something slightly different, Sarah, I also think don't judge yourself on how everyone else looks. Because I think some people present outwardly an extremely confident and put together, persona. Oh, everything's fine and I'm great with my HIV. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how they actually feel at all. And I do think it's important. That's why not to always look at other people and go, oh yeah, no, I should be like that because I'm, I was diagnosed longer ago, so I should be in a better place than that person. No. You don't actually know how that person feels behind closed doors. They might be in a totally different stage to you. Yeah, so it's like you're saying, everyone just do it in your own time and process it, in your own way. But don't just shove it down and not deal with it.
No, because it will come back at some point and then you are going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So there you go. Next time, we're going to look at what happens when you can't move past the denial stage, the process.
And we have worked with so many people that get locked. I would literally say locked into that, and there is no moving them away from it.
Yes, so we will understand a little bit more about why that happens.
Okay, amazing. So are you just taxi driving for the rest of the week?
Yeah.
Oh, would you want to do some work for me? Take me around anywhere? Come pick me up.
Where do you need to go?
Well, I don't know. Think of somewhere.
No.
Call Sarah Cars.
No, because I'm only doing it for people under the age of 18. And by people, I mean just my 2 children. That sounded a bit weird, didn't it?
Oh, I was going to say because my dogs are under 18, but you said people also.
Oh, no, I'm not ferrying them around.
Well, rude.
Because I hoovered my car out at the weekend and I don't want dog hair. Although they're short-haired, aren't they? But I bet, do they? No, Tony's not.
Tony is
very
like
fluffy.
Oh my, he is the bane of my life. The literal bane of my existence with hair. Like it is, oh my God, I'm constantly hoovering. Everything has to have a blanket on it so that you can take the blanket off to wash the blanket.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he just shakes and it's like...
No, you should collect it all up. It would make a good duvet, maybe.
Oh, I honestly could. So every day when I take him for a walk, I brush him. And the amount of hair that comes off this dog, because he's got 2 coats, because he's meant to live outside. He has 2 coats. So in the summer, like now, he's shedding. I can pull out clumps, entire clumps of his hair.
How does he cope in the boiling hot?
Yeah, not very well. And I think that's what sort of compacted his anxiety with the fireworks, because suddenly it got really, really hot as well. I mean, he's dug a load of holes in our garden. What a treat to lay in. So that's how he stays cool quite often, just in a pit.
Oh, no.
And so I'm forever saying to Ben, is he in his hole? Where's Tony? And he's like, he's in a hole. He's in a hole in the garden somewhere.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah.
That's quite clever.
Yeah, well, I guess it's what he used to do out in the wild, but now he started guarding our house a bit. So he just wants to lay outside and stare at the house because he's a bit scared. So, yeah, never mind. Hoping he'll calm down a bit. And by next week's episode, hopefully, he's just back to normal.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Jinx.
Thanks for listening to the HIV podcast. If you enjoyed our podcast, please like, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You can now also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the HIV Podcast for behind-the-scenes insights and video. The HIV Podcast is produced by Thames Valley Positive Support.